There is a population of people. They fascinate, irritate, and are like ghosts, shape-shifting and disappearing into their surroundings. They are the high intelligent, gifted population. Intellect is only one part of who they are, and we hope to uncover the complexities with which they live their life. Here we start a new conversation. Join us as we delve into the world of intelligence. Perhaps you will discover a child, a neighbor, friend, or yourself in this conversation. Hello, and welcome back. I'm Cindy Dickman, host of the Rethinking Intelligence podcast, and I am super excited today to have a wonderful guest with me, Blaire. And welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Yes, and I really love how we met. We met through your former fiance, now husband, and I have had an incredibly soft spot and place in my heart and life that only Blaire and Jaron can hold. And so I am so incredibly grateful that you are here.
Yeah, I mean, you played a part in bringing us together because he was going through a tough time when he met you, and then I was going through a tough time and he introduced me to you. And then we attribute you to a reason why we were able to move past that and grow together, and why we're honestly together today. So we owe you a lot. We're very grateful for what you've taught us about the mind.
Thank you. It's a mutual benefit. So we were talking before recording about the gifted brain, the high intelligence brain, what it is, how it can be misunderstood. I want to have more of a candid conversation with you today about how that has played out potentially in your life, how you see it playing out. I'm going to ask a couple questions, and I would love to just hear your reflections on them. Have you ever considered yourself to be a gifted high intelligence person?
Have I ever considered myself a gifted high intelligence person?
Mm-hmm.
Was that your question?
It was, yeah.
Um, no, and that's because no, not at first, because I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was in first grade. So I was put in special ed classes, and I didn't realize, well, that was a little bit traumatizing for me as a kid, because maybe not traumatizing, but it was embarrassing enough for me to never want to have to go back to those classes. I think I went to about 3 of them, but my mom told me I would just go out to my lawn in my backyard with a wagon full of books and just read every book I could until I could be the best reader ever and get out of the class. I did, and I ended up getting 12th place in the spelling bee. Moving on in life, always struggle with focus, always struggle with attention, struggled with a lot of things that people with ADHD do. I'm just textbook DSM. I fit the diagnosis. But I did AP classes, never was great at standardized testing, went to San Diego State, got my master's at St. Andrews, did a course at Cambridge. Now I'm at Alliant getting my doctorate in psychology. I think the intelligence aspect is in the way I think differently and do things differently. I also have said that you don't need to be intelligent to get a doctorate. You just need to be willing to torture yourself. Yeah. I think my intelligence runs in one channel, but not like the typical channel that people would consider intelligent. The average person would consider intelligent in the United States. I think I've had to work really hard and prove my whole life that I deserve to be in the seats that I want to be in because of my neurodivergence. You want to say?
Yeah.
Long answer to a question, but
no, absolutely not. There's like so much that comes out by you talking, because as you say, your textbook DSM for ADHD, you're a textbook. Hopefully someday there will be a DSM for the neurodivergence of the gifted high intelligence brain. You are a textbook for that. And oftentimes the two overlap. Oftentimes it's just a misdiagnosis because there's not a DSM for the gifted brain. And I always feel like that's important because I always say there's so many things about this conversation that I would be incredibly wealthy if I got a penny for every time I heard it. And Oh, I have ADHD. I couldn't focus. Well, you know what? The gifted brain, that part of the brain, that part that oversees the focus part, is actually enlarged in the high intelligence brain. And when it is enlarged, it's overactive. It has more neurons firing on So there's a lot of overlapping with other diagnoses. You can have both, of course. I mean, the brain is incredibly complex. But when you look at it through this other lens of, whoa, if my brain is actually enlarged in these areas, oh, that could actually attribute to this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to step back because I realized I did not talk about what you have done in your life. And I feel like it is part of the things that you have done in your life that shows me how differently you think about things. And it really is the difference in how we approach life and how we perceive incoming stimuli and what we do with it that really does set this brain apart. And so I would love for you to speak a little bit about what you have done, namely your book and so forth.
Um, Thank you for saying that. I think when I reached the later stages of my life where I am now, I completely agree with you and everything you said in terms of I do think thinking differently is a strength. I think where I
Mm,
struggled was being made to fit into structures that didn't
absolutely.
and systems that didn't serve me. And
Absolutely.
my brain is very efficient. I
Hmm.
in school thought that a lot of what we were learning was a waste of time. Mind you, I'm a forever student. I'm always going to learn. I'm
Yes.
always going to take a course, but I think differently about how I take courses, how I work. Um, and so
Yes.
I really just don't fit into like typical
Hmm.
structures. Even
Yes.
with psychology now
I
and the
imagine.
approaches we're learning and the theories,
Yes.
um, I know them, I've studied them,
Yes.
I learned them, I have more to learn. But when I'm working with a patient, I pretty much, I won't,
Mhm.
there's, we don't have standardized brains. So I will not
Mhm.
pick one format and just be dogmatic and stick to that
Yes.
way. Because structures have never worked for me. Typically, if someone is experiencing some type of psychopathology, then there is a structure in their life that's not working for
Mhm.
them. So it requires a different approach. And that's how I've realized I've been able to help a lot of people. But back to answering, so exactly what you're saying, that's when I realized I did have a strength and I stopped.
Absolutely.
But for most of my life, I was like, I thought to myself, I'm
Mhm.
an idiot and I'm stupid.
Yes.
Um, yeah, so that's still there a little bit. Anyway, so to your question of what I have done, I
Well, I would like to go back with what you just said because it's so important.
hmm
I think to understand how those formative years
hmm
of like knowing that you are different, not being
hmm
able to put words to it, and no one coming and telling us you may feel different, but you're not. There's nothing wrong with you. We never had anyone come and do that for us in those formative years, right? It carries through immensely. And I cannot tell you the number of gifted adults that I have spoken with who that is probably one of the biggest things. We know that we are incredibly capable of doing anything. From a young age, it's this weird knowing in us that we could go and do anything, right? And, but yet it's, it's always this little voice, are you really sure? Because you can't do it the way that they want you to do it. You can't do it the way that they say it should be done. So, and it holds back. And so it's like this incredible potential that I see over and over and over just gets put on the back burner. Or we go in more of a traditional path and excel in a more traditional path because it's more accepted. Whereas, like, if we were allowed to understand ourselves and run wild, can you imagine the inventions, the creations that this world could be graced with, you know?
and the trouble is it's not always safe to do that.
Mhm.
like time and time again, I'll choose the conventional route like I am in now. And when I do run wild, I people
Yes,
people consistently try to snuff the light out of you and
absolutely.
put
Hmm.
barriers and boundaries around you, threaten to take your like it's very real.
Hmm.
Threaten to take your job, threaten to sign. I've had my voice silenced. I'm not allowed at this period of my life to share my thoughts. I have the potential, if I speak against what I think is
Hmm.
wrong or science that I don't believe in, um, I could lose my license. And so you have to sometimes the way people have things structured for power and control, whatever, but it's to keep people like us in a box. And you know what that leads to? It leads to people being very sick,
Hmm.
mentally and physically.
Yes.
Chronic symptoms
Hmm.
manifest, and I think that's why, especially in women, almost half of our nation is experiencing chronic illness because the systems that we're in currently aren't serving us the way they
Yeah.
should. That's a very large esoteric issue, but it really does come down to a big part of what you're talking about.
Absolutely. And it's like, here you are, you have a different way that you want to approach something. If we could change this conversation about what intelligence is, right? And allow your brain to do what it was created to do. Can you imagine what you have to bring forward that you could be helping these women with? And I know that you have so much you have so much a passion for like health and relationships, right?
Yep, and I hope to one day, but right now I can only do it within the limits and confines of
Mm.
what I'm allowed as a doctoral trainee. So that's so frustrating because I've been working with people for about a decade now on this kind of
Mhm.
thing. So I clearly have my opinions on what works, what doesn't,
Mhm.
but you kind of have to pay to play. And there is a lot of valuable stuff that I'm learning. But
Mhm.
for someone like me who processes things very quickly, I get frustrated.
Mhm.
So, and the point that you said earlier about how it can impact us so deeply as children is
Mhm.
huge because, yeah, nobody tells you like it's okay that you're different. Everyone just says it's not okay.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
you
And
ultimately
these are
just
the
grow up
steps you need to
thinking,
take to fit in, right? Like,
yeah, so you grow up thinking that something's just incredibly wrong with you. Sad, but
yeah, it,
that's
it,
where we're
it it is. But two things I would like for you to, we're circling back to the last question of like what you have done that has
mm,
been out of the box, so to speak, of
mm,
where your unique brain has taken you in doing projects and things, which I find very fascinating. And then
mm.
maybe also speak to a little bit about, even though you were in the confines of as a doctoral student now, but where you see if you could run wild, some of the things that you would like to see. We're in, 30, 40 years because medicine, this world research always catches up.
Mhm.
It always catches up. So it may look really crazy right now, or it may be
Mhm.
frowned upon, but it always catches up. I mean, history tells us that. But the thing with these our minds, right, is that we do think way ahead.
Yeah.
If you could think of an example of two of where you would like things to be, where you see
Yeah.
they could be the potential. So like those two, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, it completely makes sense. And so for what I've done, that's different. And mind you, even in this experience of talking about it, I'm like, I don't even talk about it. It's, but I guess, I guess the first thing is that, I, I guess I'll put it this way. I really struggled with my mental health for most of my life. I also really struggled with my physical health for most of my
Mhm.
life. And there's a lot of reasons for why. But when I went to San Diego State University for my undergrad, that's when I became really passionate about politics
Mhm.
and probably just the systems that we're in and knowing that they weren't supporting us as they could be. So
Mm,
a lot of this started out with mental health advocacy. I
mm,
didn't think that I wanted students that were at their really formidable years to be able to have access to mental health services, to be
mm,
able to have conversations that were being had, to develop into the best version of themselves. And so I became really interested in just health in general, physical and mental health. And through my own experience, I guess I realized that a lot of it has to do with our relationships with
mm.
everything, whether
Yeah.
it be our relationship with God, a higher power,
Mm,
our family, our
yeah.
friends.
Yeah.
And what was really impactful at the time for me was romantic relationships,
Mm,
because that when you're in your 20s, it's like a focus for
yes.
not everybody, but that was not,
It was for you.
yeah, that was just for me. Yeah. Um, and I saw it was for a lot of people around me.
Mm,
So I realized I thought I was going to go into politics because
mhm,
I just knew I wanted to make a change. I want to make a change.
mm. Yeah.
I want to make a change in health and access to resources and well-being. People not being held back, people living better lives,
Mhm,
um, people reaching their full potential, whatever that was. And I realized I couldn't do it through the channel that I thought I could do it through. Politics for me were too slow.
mm,
So again, I was thinking efficiency, and I would just sit in
yeah,
these 9-hour board meetings and just
yeah,
want to fall asleep. And I was just like, get to the point. Let's go.
yeah,
Let's
yeah, yeah, yeah,
talk about what matters. Like, there's
yeah,
so many systems and checks and balances which are there for a reason. But for
mhm,
me, I was like, this isn't getting us anywhere. So,
mhm,
and there was other reasons I left, but I left politics and I said, well, what's another massive industry of influence? And
mm,
that was entertainment. I was looking to be a part of a big industry of influence. How could I reach the most people
mm,
through what I was doing? So I thought the most respectable one was politics, because it's like a blazer and like people are going to take you seriously.
yeah,
Well, that didn't work out. So then I went entertainment. Worked at Sony Pictures. When I was there, started. I really shifted into that life. So I tried to get involved. I've always had an art background, but I
mm,
began to think that to reach the generation that I wanted to reach, I couldn't do it through archaic systems, had to do
mm,
something differently, had to look at things differently. So I wanted to communicate to people through art, humor, more
mm,
casual language. This is the time when the self development boom was happening. I was
mhm,
working for a really I had to work like 4 jobs to live in LA at the time. Nanny
yeah,
at Sony, internship at
everything,
PR studio, whatever.
yeah,
And I worked for a big self development influencer. He's still one of the biggest to this day, but that's when everyone was writing books like You
mhm.
Are a Badass and The
Oh,
Subtle Art of
yes,
Not Giving a Fuck, and like all
yeah,
of these, pardon the French, but all You Are Something Greatness. Just every,
yeah,
yeah, it was like people were realizing that to reach people with their message, they started needing to change the way they communicated. Obviously, communication was my BA.
mhm,
I knew that as well. I was studying marketing. So I saw a boom in dating apps at the time,
mm,
and I saw a shift in the way that people were mating, which
yeah,
sounds really funny, but mate choice and
yeah,
attracting each other,
mhm,
how people were valuing attraction, how people were viewing monogamous relationships, sexual orientation, gender identity, all of these different things.
and
And I
can
don't,
I just wanna say here, I think, like,
yeah,
this is the prime example of when we talk about this brain difference.
hmm
Like, you're taking us step by step through how very different you are approaching this subject. Even by you saying that sentence of like how people were mating, you're taking it from such a different perspective. You're taking it from a perspective of curiosity, maybe wonder and interest. And anyone listening to this can see like, whoa, that is a very different perspective. But that's one of the unique things about this brain, right? We do see something that no one else does, and we know that it can be approached differently.
I didn't even think of that. Yes. And so I thought that heartbreak, dating, love, libido is probably very Freudian of me, but
Mm,
before even knowing anything about Freud, had a guess that our sex drive is one of the most powerful forces uh, that we have in our human experience. And
mm,
I don't say that because most women at this time are like, my sex drive is gone, so I don't know what you're talking about. But that's not what I mean. I just mean
yeah.
libido in terms of like creativity, art,
Yes.
passion,
Hmm.
ambition. This is all libido, and it
Mm.
comes from that concept of creation, sex drive. I don't know. Anyway,
No,
um,
I love that you broaden that and you make it bigger. It needs to be approached from a fuller perspective for it really to impact our lives in the way it was meant to. And it sounds like you even just approaching the topic of libido and opening it up and broadening it to encompass all of these things about who we are and how we approach life is a beautiful perspective.
thank you. And it's big because it needs to look like that in order to help people heal in so many categories
Mhm.
also. And gosh, we could go down a rabbit hole with that if we wanted to, but it is bigger than just what people think it is. And so again, I'm always trying to get people to think differently about that. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah. So
That would be another podcast when we just talk about broadening the scope of libido. That would be fantastic,
libido.
actually.
Yeah. Absolutely. And like you said, like we all catch up, science catches up, but Freud, so it's a funny story. I applied to a massive one of the top universities in the United Kingdom for my master's degree in health psychology. And it was there was three universities I was looking at. I won't name it. I ended up going to University of St. Andrews. I'm so glad. Best university in the UK, in my opinion. But there was one university, and in the interview, I I actually got in an argument, a very diplomatic, academic snobbish argument with the person interviewing me, who said that she poo-pooed Freud. She
Mm,
poo-pooed everything psychoanalytic, psychodynamic, and thought it was just old fashioned and there wasn't anything to
mm,
it. And that was what was trending at that time. Is in academia, everyone always loves to be like, oh no, that's not what we're at
mm.
anymore. Like we're over here. I
Yeah.
don't know. It's just I can't get caught with the lingo still and the cultural norms of that.
Mm,
I'm fully a part of it. Hence me and my tartan blazer. But anyway, we got in an argument,
yeah.
and I said, no, libido is certainly one of the most important parts of the human psyche. And
Hmm.
I will write a dissertation on that one day. And anyway, she denied me from the program. So she thought I was crazy. And in her
Yeah.
email, I should have kept it and framed it. But in her
Mm,
email, she said it was extremely concerning, the commitment that I had to this narrative.
interesting.
Funny enough, today, probably 6 years later, I'm currently in a class at Alliant, which is the number one psychology school basically in California that spits out PsyDs and PhDs.
Hmm.
And one of my professors is teaching a class on psychodynamic theories and Freud, and
Yeah.
how we can still utilize it today. And I'm writing a conceptualization paper right now in class.
Mm,
I would love to send that to that professor and be like, remember
yeah.
when you said 6 years ago that
Yeah.
this, yeah. Anyway,
Well,
it's just,
but I think it also encapsulates, it really does. Like that in a nutshell says kind of what the gifted person the high intelligence person deals with from when they are really young. We have an idea.
Mhm.
We have an idea. We want to put it forth. And if you don't share this brain, it's really hard for us to put into words how these thoughts and ideas come to us, right? But it's like for me, it's like literally, it's like puzzle pieces flying in from the ether and going together in my head to make a complete picture. And
Wow.
I've talked to others, and it's like how it comes together for them, it just makes sense. And when we can't put words to this way of thinking that oftentimes is so expansive and broadening and phenomenal, quite honestly. And we can't put words to it. Those who don't share this brain, if there aren't words to go behind it, it's it's not true. It doesn't work. It's not worth anyone's time.
Yeah.
And so it's like I really appreciate you sharing that. It's like this kind of odd dichotomy, that is that the right word, that we experience, yeah, from a very young age, of having these incredible ideas that we know just make sense. And it's not for everyone. There's no one idea that goes for everyone, but for the people it does go for, it was life changing.
That's what I'm trying to
Yeah.
help, right? I'm
Yeah.
not trying to help. I can't. The perfect example of I have a friend that has a partner whose mom passed away from, it's a tragic story, but she had cancer and she passed away from sort of denying like all Western medicine
Oh.
and just sticking to holistic care. And there
Mhm.
was life-saving treatment she could have done, and she didn't do it because she believed so fiercely in just taking a holistic route.
Mhm.
And her son is traumatized to this day
Yeah.
about that experience. So myself, as a psychologist who has a health
Mhm.
psychology background, who looks at the mind body connection and health
Yeah.
between couples and health and relationships,
Mhm.
probably right off the bat isn't going to be the most healing person that that human being could go to if they need
Mhm.
support. And so you're yeah, you're not for everyone. Um, and I'm still learning that lesson to this day, but I guess that's the most challenging part is my
Mhm.
typical narrative I have is my whole life it's been like it's been that it's being shut down by these
Mhm.
people, snuffing the light out, snuffing the light out.
Yeah.
You're wrong, you're bad, you
Mhm.
need to be quiet, you shouldn't say
Mhm.
this, you shouldn't
Yeah.
think this way.
Mhm.
And it's really caused me to go into like deep dark
Mhm.
places for encyclical whatever for a really long time.
Yeah.
But then when you see that one person who actually did help,
Yes.
it's like, okay, I can die happy. And that's it. That's all
Yeah.
that matters. Like,
Yes.
fine. I help. I'm
Yes.
wrong for everybody else, but that one person I helped,
Yeah.
fine. And that's sort
Yeah.
of the path I'm going down, is just
Yeah.
sticking to those people.
And they got it. And I'm actually glad that you brought back, you said you didn't want to go into it too much, but like the the mental health aspect of it.
Mhm.
The mental health aspect goes so hand in hand with this brain. The level
Mhm.
of anxiety, depression, OCD, it, and many other, I don't need to mention them all, are so high in this population for a myriad of reasons. But I feel like one of the components is that contributes to that is never feeling like you were ever understood,
Really?
and that you're not crazy. And I remember my first bout. For anyone who knows me now, it's probably hard to like really, but my childhood was from like the age of 6 to, and I don't even know, the severe depression ended probably around 10 or 11. But I mean, my entire childhood was like severe depression, and and no one could understand why. And now when I look back, it's because I was wired for like such intensity of input of emotion or beauty around me. Like it's such a yes, it's just really interesting. It's like look back and no one could say like, wow, this is your experience. First of all, validate it that I'm not crazy, that I can actually talk about it with someone, but then also understand my brain type to help me understand the depth at which I am taking information in. And our brains, no matter any age, is really not built, even though it's built to create that intensity, is not really built to actually handle the level
Yeah.
of intensity. It's kind of like it has the open valve, let it all in. But then I don't know what to do with it once it's in here.
And your body, like your body didn't know, like,
Yeah.
and so your body probably became depressed because it was just like, slow down. I don't know how
Yeah,
to
you don't.
process this. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so it's like in hindsight, I can see that. But just to your point of mental health is a huge part of the story of the high intelligent mind. And I mean, we see that, right? When we look at, I'm thinking like some of the greats, we call them crazy, like Nikola Tesla, or I'm going back to like the greats, the artists, right? I mean, how many artists have gone on, or actors who have gone on to commit suicide, and like Robin Williams, all of that. It's like I look at them and I'm like, it is the same story
Mental.
repeated over and over and over because they had a brain that was different and no one understood who they were and they couldn't
Absolutely.
understand themselves. And they,
Absolutely. I mean, oh God, I remember going through the Van Gogh. I went through a Van Gogh pop-up
mm,
in the
yeah.
Netherlands, and I listened. It was the first time a while back when I heard he chopped off his ear because his lover
Mm,
was denying his love. And
mm,
I went, huh, everyone around me was like, that's crazy. And I was
yeah.
like,
You understood
"Oh,
it.
he loves deeply."
Yes.
And
Yeah,
Shakespeare, William Shakespeare, brilliant, brilliant,
absolutely.
brilliant man. But people,
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, people didn't think that guy was going anywhere with what he was writing and what he was doing, and
Hmm.
um, but mental health, yes. And to get to,
Hmm.
I we're kind of hopping around, but to get to the other question,
Yes. I want to get to
you,
your book of what led you there.
oh, okay, and we'll
That
get
sounds,
back to the like what I hope, one of
yeah.
the
Oh,
things that I
yes,
hope
yes.
changes.
Mm,
But to the mental health thing, that's the biggest piece is
mm,
like we're taught as doctors to pathologize,
yes.
especially because we have to for insurance companies to get these people the support they need so their treatment is paid for. They have to
Yeah.
have a diagnosis. And for me, as I'm getting to know people, like,
Mm,
yes, I love a good cup of coffee and reading my DSM. Yes, I love to understand symptoms. Yes, I think there's importance in the framework that we
yeah.
have to
Hmm.
understand which approaches we can use on certain people. But at the end of the
Definitely.
day, in my experience so far, we pathologize too much. Someone
Mm,
shouldn't have to fit within a category to seek
mm,
help.
yeah.
And I'm not afraid. Everyone's afraid of AI, right? Like AI
Mm,
is gonna take over the world and like get rid of all therapist jobs. But
yeah.
in my experience, the most therapeutic interventions that I've done, AI could never do because AI is not human.
Mm,
And that's what humans need for
yes.
healing. Intimate healing requires intimate relationships. That's what I said in
Yes.
my first book. So,
Mm, yes.
so yeah, like
Mm,
there's a lot like schizophrenics, for
hmm.
example, people who have schizophrenia, as I
Mm,
say it, but they some hear voices, some have hallucinations, some
hmm.
have delusions. So I could never do this because it's arguably, I could never do this now because it's not ethical.
Mm,
Um, I could get my license revoked. But it's one of those
hmm.
things where if certain people from certain cultures we've known since the beginning of time hear voices, see
Yes,
ghosts, all these
absolutely.
different things,
Yep.
and energy, spirits, whatever.
Hmm.
You're taught to sort of like ground someone, normalize someone, tell them that you don't hear, you can't see, you
Mm,
don't believe in like what they're seeing and hearing because that allows them to realize that it is a hallucination or a
hmm.
delusion. And apparently that creates like some sense of grounding, which I can see could help so many people. But I'll share that I actually grew up very like intuitive and energetically
Hmm.
sensitive. So I fully believe, like, when I was little, I would talk to ghosts
Hmm.
or energies or whatever else. So still to this day, I make the joke with my colleagues. I say I'm either schizophrenic
Yeah.
or I either have schizophrenia, or I
Yeah.
actually do talk to entities, spirits, see
Mm-hmm.
ghosts, see demons, like have intuitive feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's not clinical, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not clinical unless it causes impairment in
Yes,
and
absolutely.
distress in an area of your life. It's never caused me distress.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe this distress wouldn't be such a thing in so many people if, like you said, people
Mm-hmm.
were seen and validated earlier in life for their experiences. And maybe we would have less mental health diagnoses in the first place. So
Absolutely.
mhm,
Absolutely. I love that. Oh man, you are hitting on every beautiful topic that we could talk hours about. I love it, and I'm glad that you just went for it. I have this intuitive part of me because that's actually something that I'm working on, a part of a book, and later on in this podcast, is because in my experience with this population, the elevation of unexplained events and the intuitive nature is incredibly high across the board in this population. So you will
wow.
have what is causing more attunement, what is causing a greater perception. And so I love it that you just said it because a lot of people don't want to go there because intelligence is often never correlated with seeing and hearing things
Mhm.
or
That's
experiencing things that are cannot be explained. But I have had conversations with incredibly brilliant engineers who are incredibly fact-based, that hear and see things and have experiences that cannot be explained, but they don't tell anyone. And I so this is so I'm really glad that you just boom went there because a lot of people don't want to.
that with people because I don't talk about it either, especially not in my industry. But the
Mm-hmm.
current narrative in psychology is that if you're from a culture where these
Mm-hmm.
traditions are
Yeah.
common, so then that's more accepted. But um, probably if you're just like a European white girl
Mm-hmm.
with English descent, like I am, then they're like,
Yeah.
ah,
Yeah,
you
let's
obviously don't,
question this. Yeah, I
yeah, you don't
remember
want to.
I was in the master's program in neuroscience at King's College actually, and
Wow.
we were read a lot on schizophrenia actually, and
Mhm.
I've had several connections with people who are actually still in mental hospitals with schizophrenia who are brilliant, and I honestly
Mm.
don't think, yeah, that's a whole other topic. But
Yep.
it was very interesting talking or reading these research papers. We're just going to have to leave it unexplained. People have these experiences. It does not impede their life. It does not negatively affect their life. It cannot be explained, and we're just going to leave it at that. And I was like, yay! It's like here is very reputable neuroscience program who is allowing us to read this research. And it's like, yes, this is my experience, right? Like, I know I'm not crazy, but there are these things. And so it's really has never been talked about. Actually, this is the first time that I have ever will have ever like publicly said something, because I just don't think that idea is even out there, is that the intuitive nature is linked with this gifted brain. But in my experience across the board, it is. So yeah, so
Cool.
look forward to that later. But
Glad to know. I can't wait to read your book. That's really exciting. Congratulations.
Um, but so you answered that one piece of where you would like to see it go or where you're coming at it, and I love how you have broadened it, and maybe over the coming decades you'll be able to talk more and more as science catches up with your ideas of how things are interconnected, right? Um, and then I'll let you go back to the other piece.
Okay. Yes, that's a problem. That's why I don't do writing and research too much. I'll do my own, but in turn, I do have to
Mm.
do it as a second dissertation. Why I do this to myself? I don't know. I have to do it, but I just think it's a very long process. I respect deeply the people that do it. I just don't have the patience, and and there we go. I will wait for it to catch up, and I will stick to my what I know, what I read, and my own
Make the
experience.
difference now where you can. Absolutely,
Make the difference hour
absolutely.
again.
Mm.
So okay, yes, relationships I noticed were very powerful. They were very powerful for myself. They were really powerful for other people. They are what's written about in the most songs. They're what some of the most famous movies. Love in songs, love in movies, love is the answer. Like the answer is love. I don't know. I love love. So I wanted to explore that, what it meant. And when you say love versus relationships, you realize it really is wider because even people, when you ask people like, what is God? Certain people will say love or that's an aspect. But, so I thought this is where I was deeply hurt. I was deeply hurt in that area. And so, and then I learned so much about myself through that pain. And then I took the same route that most people do, which is like, okay, you're in the position to help the younger version of yourself. Whatever you went through, there's someone else out there that's going through something similar, and then you can help that person. So out of my frustration of science, politics, slow systems, I'm an Aries. I'm impatient, and I just want to get to the heart of things and figure things out on my own. I did my own social experiment. So I wouldn't recommend anyone to read the book unless not now, because I wrote that when I was 21 years old and I'm 31. That was a decade ago. Like I would say like I'm probably deeply ashamed of like the fact that there is no scientific formula to how I did what I did, but I'm also extremely proud of the fact that I said screw that. I don't know what those people are doing, but it's not working, and I just did my own thing. So I dated a bunch of people, and I processed what I learned through my experiences in a journal, and then I turned that into a blog. The blog gained enough traction for me to get enough followers to fund creating a book. The book sadly was stolen. There was a friend who knew about my idea, and there who definitely read my stuff was working at Sony at the time when I was, and her fiance somehow magically came up with a movie that was like identical to my life and my story. So it's funny because it's like people are, what if she didn't? People still say to this day, what if she didn't know? Well, she definitely knew I had a story. So wouldn't you like go to that person and be like, hey, funny, my husband created an exact story like your life? Of course you would. And so she did. There's no getting out of that. She knew. They made the movie on my life. I shut down after that for a while because again, when I spoke out about it, I did get a lot of support, but then there were people that just didn't believe me. Like, this wasn't your idea. This wasn't your work. This is not what you did. And I thought it was really funny, still to this day. The people that said, you know what's very interesting to me? The people that say that kind of things are, and mind you, I consider myself a very progressive like person, but the people that said those things are people who tend to be like women's rights activists and stuff like that. Peace, love, like justice. And then they go ahead and at the same token are telling me, you, the woman, didn't write the story about the woman. You, the 20-year-old woman in Los Angeles, didn't write the story about the 21-year-old woman in Los Angeles. Some random dude from Harvard wrote that. He's not from California, doesn't know this place, LA. He wrote that though, not you. And so, anyway, you can tell I'm still like, so forever I'll think, wow, stealing someone's libido, stealing someone's passion, their life's work, their fire, like their ideas is so flattering. And that's when I knew how I thought was certainly validated because someone thought it was good enough to turn it into some Netflix thing. But still to this day, I'm like, that's as evil as you can get as a human being, really. It's a psychological rape in a sense. And so I shut down for a really long time after that. And I'm still shut down. And this is the first podcast I've done since. So I stopped talking.
I'm so glad. And I thank you so much for your honesty on that and coming on here. And I'm pausing because once again, I think you took the words right out of my mouth of what I just wrote something for my book, right? It's this idea of our ideas are too out there. Our ideas are too crazy until they aren't, and then they're taken from us often. When society catches up with where we are, it is often taken, and I've heard this again and again of like, this was my idea, and then someone else took it in industry or whatnot. And so I just think, I mean, I really don't have much more to say about it of like, I know exactly where you're coming from, and you're not alone in experiencing this at all. Because we are ahead. And then when society does like, oh wow, this is a great idea, they forget where the idea came from. Maybe not in
Mhm.
your particular situation, but it can get muddied where the idea came from, because now all of society is on board with that idea, and it just seems
Mhm.
commonplace, and it just seems um, mainstream.
Absolutely. And it's frustrating. And so obviously my ego was talking and it gets very annoyed. Like
Hmm.
I'm human. It's just detestable to me, but I now know that that's okay because my heart, like that's my ego is frustrated and annoyed. My
Hmm.
heart though wants to help people. And
Hmm.
so if I did, I did.
Hmm.
And doesn't matter what forum or if someone wants to steal my idea and they did and it impacted people's lives,
Mm.
fine.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that wasn't theirs, so
Yeah,
um, they won't ever get that true love and satisfaction out of it that I did. And that's a
absolutely.
good reminder for people like us also because it's
Hmm.
annoying, but yeah, society will keep shutting these kind of brains down.
Hmm.
No, 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 you're bad, you're bad. Quiet, quiet, quiet
Hmm.
till the end of time because we're the poppies that stand up. And so
Yeah,
I'm
well,
navigating that now. I'm still
yeah.
navigating how do I
Hmm.
exist where I'm at.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think and I think part of the beauty of this and these conversations and getting these conversations out there is that it's roughly the top 5% of the population. Millions and millions and millions of people worldwide are living your experience. Maybe not the exact same one, but
Mm,
as you talk, it's like ping, ping, ping. This is my life. Oh, this is a client that I've spoken with. This is, it is such a shared experience, but we don't know it's a shared experience.
mm,
And when we can tap in and understand how our brain is wired, because literally, you're talking about libido, which I love that broader definition of it. But where is that whole concept of libido coming from in you? It is your brain,
mm,
and it's coming from your brain and how it's wired. So if we can go back to the source and understand, why am I even having these thoughts? Why is it important?
mm,
If we can understand where it's originating from, we can come to a completely different appreciation for ourselves. We can come to a completely different way of moving through society and the daily frustrations that we can experience. It just it can affect so many different things. And so I really, really appreciate you coming on and sharing.
mm,
And I know it's just a small, small piece of your story,
mm.
but yet it's already so much, right? We live such
Yeah,
intense lives. I've said to my husband, I could die now because I feel like I've already lived 10 lives in one.
that's beautiful.
And it doesn't have to be all good, but it's just like the intensity with which life comes at us.
So
It's like,
much. It's a
yeah.
lot. It's a lot of intensity and energy. And thank you for reminding me that um, I'm not alone. And I love meeting. I love our work that we do because it's healing for us too,
Hmm.
isn't it? That's the selfish part is like when I meet someone sitting across from me, I'm thinking of one patient in particular who is just me but younger, kind of.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I know how alone she feels. It's nice to be able to say you're not alone.
Absolutely.
And
And like I said, maybe we'll have to get back to talk about the broader libido because I love just the expansiveness of new topics and conversations. So we'll have to do that another time. So thank you
yeah,
once again for joining.
anytime. Have a great rest of your day.
You
Thank you.
too.